Hi everyone. Today's video topic is going to be super global arrays in PHP. Now these are just arrays that are just there for you. PHP generates these arrays for you. You can use them anywhere, so they're available anywhere in your PHP code, and they contain all sorts of information that's really useful when you're developing. So we're going to talk about super global arrays in a second, but I want to try something here, and we're going to write some code together that's going to display the data in these arrays. We've seen the var dump. That's kind of hard to read, so we're going to write a function together here that we're going to use to display the contents of these super global arrays. So by the way, so get your files open. Here's the file superglobalarrays.php. There's nothing in it, just the PHP delimiters. And then I did put a link to a reference on PHP super global arrays here, which is pretty good. So you can check that out if you want. Okay, now let's go ahead and write some code here. So what we're going to do is we're going to write a function. So do this with me. And it's going to be called dump. We're just going to call it dump. And it's going to take two parameters. The first parameter is going to be what we call name. And that's going to be the name of the super global variable. And then the second parameter is going to be an array, so I'll just call it AR, and that's going to be the actual super global array. So basically we've got name is going to be our label that we're going to use, and then array is going to be the array that we pass into this function. Okay, so I'll set the table. So set up your function like this. I like to put my closing curly brace on before I start writing the code for the body, just so that I don't forget later. So go ahead and set the table, and then I'm going to put some space here. I'm going to create a variable inside of here, and I'm going to call it HTML, because what we're going to do is we're going to generate a bunch of HTML and display this data in an HTML table. So we're going to start out here. I'm going to make a string, and I'm going to use H3 tags like this. So we'll get that going here. So a pair of opening and closing H3 tags, and then inside of that I'm simply gonna put the name parameter. So this is going to display the name of the super global array that we're displaying. And again, you don't PHP uses variable interpolation when you've got double quotes around your string. So this $ name right here will actually be interpreted and evaluated, and so whatever we pass into our variable, our function here, is going to show up inside the H3 tag. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to you. All right, now I'm going to put an if statement here. So I'm going to set the table for an if statement, just like this. Set the table, and then I go back and fill in all the places. So there's our if statement, and inside this if statement, I want to check to see if that second parameter, that AR parameter, I want to see if that's empty. And if it's not empty, then I'm going to do something with it. So I'm going to use the empty function, but I want to put the not operator first. So if it's not empty, and I think we talked about this empty function previously. So this is going to say, I'm going to put AR in here. So if AR is not empty, don't miss that. These are easy to miss, and it totally reverses the logic. So if the array is not empty, then we're going to dive into our if statement code right here and do some stuff with it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build up this HTML string, and I'm going to do that with our concatenation shortcut operator. So remember that in most languages this would be a plus equals, but in PHP you use dots for string concatenation. So we're going to build up that HTML variable that we started up here, and what we're going to do is put the tags in for a table. So table, and we'll make the border equal to 1 just so we can see it. And I'm going to use single quotes inside there, just like that. And then I'm going to do this. Okay, so go ahead and type that in. And then the other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit return a few times, and then I'm just going to finish up that table tag so I don't forget to later. So I'm going to go HTML dot equals, and then I'm going to do my closing table tag. Okay, you're probably wondering what the heck is going on here, but just bear with me. Okay, so in between those two lines here, where we've got the opening table tag and the closing table tag, I'm going to put a loop here. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop through the array that gets passed in. We're going to loop through this array. And now these super global arrays, they are associative arrays. So that means they're key value pairs. And that makes sense because every value has a name or a key that goes with it. So anyways, let's do a for each loop here like this. Whoop, I didn't want to do that. For each, and then we are looping through our array like that, and then we have to put this as keyword there, and then I'm just going to use this variable key. That makes sense because that's what it's going to represent. It's going to represent our key, but I could use any variable name there if I wanted to. And then I'm also going to use value for what's going to be the value, and then don't forget your curly braces. So I set the table for my for each loop like that. So we're going to loop through this array, and we're going to use the key and the value. Okay, now here's a nasty little line of code, but hopefully you'll bear with me. We're going to build up this HTML here, so I'm going to build up my HTML variable, and I'm going to do dot equals. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of do this in pieces here. This is going to be an entire row, so we're going to have a tr tag and then a closing tr tag, and I'm going to fill in some stuff in between there. And don't forget your semicolon at the end of the line. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 empty TD cells in here. So that's going to be 4 tags, 2 opening tags and 2 closing tags. So I'm going to go TD, and then I'm going to close that TD, and then I'm going to put another cell. So I'm going to go TD, and then I'm going to close that TD. Whoops, got to close it. So this is going to be our table row right here, and right now it's got 2 empty cells in every row. And then I'm just simply going to put those the key in the first cell. So I'm going to move into the first cell there and type in key here, and then I'm going to move over to the second cell, the second TD, and I'm going to squirt in the value right there. So basically what this is going to do here is it's going to create a table that's going to have 2 columns. The first column is going to be the key, and the second column is going to be the value of the array that we pass into this dump function that we're writing. Okay, let me see here. Now I suppose it's possible that our array is empty and has nothing in it. So remember, what we're checking here is we're running this the code inside this if statement here. If it's not empty, but you know, we gotta guard against all possible scenarios, and it is possible that this array could be empty. So let's write some code to handle that. So I'm just going to add an else to my if statement. So I'm going to add else here, and then put my curly braces just like that, and then I'll hit return. And what I'll do here is if what do we want to do here? If the array is empty, we'll just concatenate something onto our HTML string to let the user know. So we'll go HTML dot equals let's go the array, and then we'll put in our name here, whatever the array name is empty, just like that. So that's what we'll see if the array is empty and has nothing in it. And then finally what we're going to do is we are going to return that string. So we'll return our HTML string. Okay, so hopefully this is a good review for you here, and hopefully you can understand everything that's going on. And now we've written this function, and now it's time to use it. So I'm actually going to make my function calls above my function declaration, and you can do that in PHP. So I'm actually going to put my function calls right up here. So let's try this out. We want to go dump, and now the first super global array that we're going to deal with is called the server variables. So we're going to pass in a string, and let's just type in server vars for the first parameter, just like that. Make sure you got your double quotes there, or single quotes, whichever will work. And then remember, the second parameter is going to be the array that we want to dump out. Now, like I said, these arrays are just there. We don't have to declare them. They get declared automatically for us. They get populated automatically for us, so they're just there. We can use them from anywhere, and they can be really handy, and we'll use them all the time, especially in advanced web programming. So anyways, the syntax of these superglobals is a $, just like all other variables in PHP. And then what's weird is it goes $_ and then the name of this particular superglobal is called the server superglobal array. So what this does here, now make sure you get that underscore in there. All these superglobal arrays have the underscore after the $, so we'll be seeing a lot of that. I don't want to forget my semicolon there. So what this server array does is it has a lot of information about the web server. So we'll see what happens when we dump this out here. Now remember, actually, if I run this, I'm not going to see anything on my page because I'm not outputting anything anywhere. This function here actually returns a string, but I'm not echoing out that string anywhere. So what I want to do is I want to wrap this dump call here in an echo. So I'm going to put echo, and then I'm going to slide over to the end of the line, and then just before that semicolon, I'm going to use my closing curly brace. So I've got nested function calls here, which you should be familiar with. So basically what that means is that this function call is going to run, and whatever it returns is going to get passed into this this echo function call. So you evaluate these nested function calls from the inside out, and whatever gets returned from an inside call will be passed in as a parameter to the next function. Okay, I think we are ready to run this right now. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to bounce over to the browser here and hit refresh, and hopefully I did everything right here. Now look at this. So here's our table, and here's that name that we passed in. Remember, we put that inside of an H3 tag. Now look at all these bits of information. So now this is an associative array, and these are the keys in this first column, and then these are the values. So gosh, I don't even know what most of this stuff is. Most of this stuff is kind of showing how PHP has been configured. So, but look at this here. Here's a server variable called HTTP host, and that's our server name. So in this case, we're using localhost. Here's the user agent. Anybody know what this is? This will tell us what kind of browser the visitor is using when they visit our website. So in this case, it's Mozilla 5.0, which is Firefox. And I never understood why. Oh, I guess it's showing the operating system here too. So I'm running Windows right now. And then there's some other stuff that I'm not really sure about. So there's a whole bunch of just a whole bunch of stuff. This path variable, this is showing this is showing my system path. So you might remember that from Java. So that's showing my path on the way the server is set up. Let's see, is there anything else we want to talk about here? I've got some of this. Let's see. Like I said, I don't even know what most of this is doing. But here is the path to the page that's being run right now. So that's the path starting with the C drive all the way down to the PHP page right here. And then here we see request method. If we haven't talked about that yet, we will be soon. And this was a GET request. We're using HTTP 1.1 here. And by the way, HTTP 2 is starting to be used now, which has some exciting new features that we should talk about at some point. But anyways, here is my here's the contents of that super global server variable. So let's check out another one real quick here. So I'm going to go back over to Sublime Text, and where am I at? Where is it? Right here. Okay, lots of windows open. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and comment out this line, and then I'm going to actually duplicate it. So if you don't know the trick in Sublime Text, you can duplicate a line by doing put your cursor on the line somewhere, and then do Control-Shift-D. Oh, I forgot. That does something to my video editing. What happened here? I got to fix this. All right, so I can't use Control-Shift-D when whoops. Oh, that's so I can. Oh, I see what that does. Okay, so that allows me to write on my screen. Interesting. Okay, so I'm not sure if you could see that. I can't use Control-Shift-D because the editing software, or the video software that I'm using to record this does something with those. So I'm just going to cut and paste this line, not including the comments here. There's nothing ever goes perfectly smoothly, so I'll paste that in here. And what I'm going to do is let's look at the get super global array now. So get, so we'll change that label so that it says get, and then here the array name is called get. And by the way, if you haven't noticed already, these are all uppercase. The names consist of all uppercase letters. So all the super global arrays are all uppercase letters. And again, don't forget that underscore there in it. Okay, so I'm going to save that. I'm going to bounce back over to the browser and let's take a look at what we get here. So I'll refresh the page. This is still showing the server vars. So I'll refresh the page. Now look at this. It's saying, oh, there's our if statement kicking in. The get vars is empty. Okay, so what does the get give us? That gives us the query string variables that are added to a URL. So watch what I do here. I'm going to put a question mark here. Now I'm not sure if we've talked about this yet, but we'll talk about query string variables in advanced web programming and in advanced topics. So anyways, a query string is part of a URL. So I want you to put your cursor at the end of the URL in the browser here and then type in a question mark, and that'll start our query string. And then let's just type in user underscore name. I'm going to get my cursor out of the way so you can see a little bit better. Equals and then Bob. Let's do it like that. Bob, like that. No quotes anywhere, so it's just user underscore name equals Bob. So now I've added that query string to the URL. I'm going to hit enter. There we go. So what the get super global array does is it allows us to access all the query string variables from a URL. So let me go ahead and add another one here. If we haven't talked about this already, the query string are key value pairs. So my key is username here and my value is Bob. And the way these work is you have to separate the key value pairs by ampersands. So I'm going to put an ampersand there, and I'll just put user underscore ID equals 22,222 just for the heck of it. And then I'll hit enter. And there you go. So this super global array, the get super global array, gives us access to the query string of the URL, this query string portion of the URL. Okay, so that's pretty cool. All right, what's next? Let's try the environment variables. So let's go back over to the Sublime text here, and let's go ahead and comment out that line right there, and then we'll go ahead and paste here, and then these are called env for environment. So env vars, and then I'm going to change that to env here, like that. We'll ignore that. And then I'm going to go back over to the page and refresh, and let's see what we get here. So, oh, it's empty. Okay, I wasn't really expecting that. Okay, so I'm not sure why that's empty. We should take a look at this page here and figure out what the environment variables are. And I don't want to do that right now because I want to keep these videos somewhat short. So in total, there's about 8 of these super global arrays that we can access. And I guess I'm not going to go over all of them. They'll be in your book in Advanced Web Programming, and they're covered in this web page here too. But let's see what else. I want to. There's one that allows us to keep track of session variables. And if you don't know what a session is, we'll be talking about it soon. But here's what I want you to add to the above everything else. This is a PHP function, and it's called session.start or session underscore start. And what this will do is this will start a session for us, and then once we have a session started, we can keep track of information about the user that's visiting our web page, which is really handy. And I just want to show you that we can. I've just been dumping out the contents of these super global arrays, but you can actually edit them too. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do $, session like this, and then these are associative arrays, so we can use this syntax. And I'm going to say let's say user. So we'll make a variable or a key value pair where the key is user, and we'll set the value to John, like that. Oh, John like this. Okay. So what I'm doing here is I'm starting a session first, and we'll talk about that later in advanced web programming. We'll be dealing with sessions, and then when I do that, I have access. I can start adding values to this super global array. So not only can we just read the data in super global arrays, we can actually add and edit data in it. Okay. So once I've done that, now this might take a couple of page refreshes, but let's go ahead and comment out this line here, and then I'll add another call to our another call to our dump function here, and let's dump out session vars this time. So session, and then over here I'll change this to session like that, and then I'll save it, and we'll go back over to the browser. Now I might have to hit refresh a couple of times here, so there we go. So these are my session variables. So we'll be talking a lot about session variables. They're a super powerful feature of web development. But anyways, all of the session variables automatically get stored in a super global array, and we can access them from anywhere in our PHP code. Okay. And if we haven't talked about session variables yet, let me just give you a heads up. Sessions use cookies, so we'll be talking about sessions and cookies at the same time. So there's also another super global array called cookies, or cookie it's called. So I'm going to comment out this line here, and then I'm going to hit paste here, and let's change this to cookie vars, and then we'll change this to cookie, not plural. So I'll go ahead and save that now. Now sessions and cookies work together. So when this session gets created, it should have also set a cookie in my browser, and we'll have to talk about that if we haven't already, but we will be talking about that in both advanced topics and advanced web dev. So I'm going to save that, go back over to the browser here, hit refresh. There we go. So I have a cookie. And it's called PHP session ID. This is the ID that's being used to keep track of all of our session variables, and we'll talk about those mechanics later. All right, I think that's going to cover it now. There's a couple other super global arrays that we haven't talked about yet. One allows us to get all the post data. So if we create a form, and we'll be doing a lot of this in advanced web programming, but if we create a form in our HTML page, you know that the data that gets entered into that form gets posted to the web server. So there's a post super global array that we can use to access all the form data that a user enters into an HTML page. There's also the other one is if you're dealing with file uploads, you can access all the files that are being uploaded to the web server, and we'll be using that one in advanced web dev too. So anyways, there you have it, super global arrays. So what I want you to do for this assignment is copy the code that I wrote here, and then I want you to experiment with it and tinker with it and dink around and get some crazy ideas so that you can be the next billionaire on the internet, because that's still an untapped area. There's still a lot of money to be made by people who are clever and can find a niche that hasn't been addressed yet. So, but it starts with tinkering. So go ahead and dink around.